all of the great thinkers, they have all disagreed with one another on many, many different things. But you know, there was only one thing that they were in complete and unanimous agreement with. Just one. That there is a power in this universe. And they say that this power, that it animates, it penetrates, and it motivates the entire cosmos. Now, if you were to go to the Ark of Apollo at Delphi, you'll see just two words inscribed over that ark at Delphi. And those two words go like this. It said, know thyself. But what do we really know about us and what this power is that animates, flows through us, flows with us? I mean, that really is what we are all about. But you see, if you define something, then you place limits on it. So you see, the way we're going to define it will not limit it. As a matter of fact, it will show that it is unlimited and that it is infinite. In a marvelous book that I brought out here with me this morning called Your Invisible Power, Genevieve Behrend, I think, put it together well in this book when she said, to get good results in our life, we must properly understand our relationship to this great impersonal power. Now think about what she said. If we are going to get, she said, the kind of results that we want, we are going to have to understand our relationship to this here great, all-encompassing, this great impersonal power. Now she said, this power is intelligent. You and I, we are intelligent. But she said, it is these two intelligences working together that determine the kind of results that we get. Well then, where do we go to find out a little bit more about this power? You see, if you examine it, there's 178 different names to describe it. I mean, we got Baha'i, Vishnu, Krishna, Muhammad, Buddha, and the list goes on and on and on. Rather than talk about the name, why don't we try to define the activity to see how it operates to, with, and through us? Rather than try to define its name, let's see if we can define the activity. Now, if you're going to find out what it is, you're going to have to go to two sources of reference, the only two that are available. And one is science, and the other is theology. They are the only two sources of reference we can go to if we're going to try to find out anything. You see, the individual that works only with intellectual intelligence, they're really not going to accomplish a whole lot. But the individual that can work with that inner, emotional, or spiritual intelligence, that individual will open themselves up to unlimited possibilities. So if we're going to define this power, and we were to go to the scientist and say, what is this power that animates, penetrates, and motivates the cosmos? Why can I walk and talk? What keeps that wall standing? What about night and day? Why is there such order in these cosmos? How do I know where there's a certain star going to be 1,000 years from now and time it within a fraction of a second? Well, the scientist will tell you there is a power that animates the cosmos, and the scientist will say, he will call, or she will call that power energy. That's the name they use to describe this activity. Now, if you ask, well, what is energy? This is the only thing the scientist can tell you. And remember, the word science means to know. It means organized knowledge. Well then ask, what is energy? And this is the only thing science can tell you. That energy just is. It is neither created nor destroyed. It is the cause and effect of itself. And it is 100% evenly present in all places at all times. 100% evenly present in all places at all times, is almighty and is all-powerful. That's fine. You may say, well, I choose not to believe that. Well, you're entitled to believe what you want. But remember this, if you don't believe in something, you're going to fall for anything. So we can cross that one out if you like, but some of you will not. Well, that only leaves you one place left to go. And if you were to go over to theology, and what does theology mean? Well, theology just means one thing, the study of God, at least in this part of the world. In another part, it may be Baha'i, Vishnu, Krishna, Muhammad, Buddha again. It goes on and on and on the list. But if you were to ask the theologian, I just left the scientist, I'm trying to find out, what is this power that animates, penetrates, and motivates the cosmos? Say, I just left down there, and I'm trying to find out a little bit about this power. I mean, you've been told that if you do this, thus, and so, you're going to win, that you have great potential. Have you ever been told that, John? Have you ever been told, honey, if you change your attitude, we'd get along better? And if you change your attitude, you could use your potential and you could be more effective? You ever been told that, Jim? On a daily basis? Sure you have. But you see, the scientist, I went to this scientist and they told me something about this energy. Now you go over to the other side and you ask the theologian. And the theologian will say, yes, there is a power in this universe that keeps everything in working order. But we have a name for the power in this part of the world. What do they call? What is the name they use in this part of the world? So you see, we take that symbol and we put it on the board, and then we ask the theologian, well, tell me, what is, who is, what do you mean by God? Can you give me a definition? And this is the only thing the theologian can tell you. Because remember, you cannot limit it. And the theologian will say, there is a power in these cosmos that we call God, and God just is. Neither created nor destroyed. He is the cause and effect of himself. And he is 100% evenly present in all places at all times. Now it seems to me that I heard that just a few minutes ago. So the only thing that has changed is the name. The activity is the same. Von Brunn pointed out that science are studying, you could say, the energy and the force around humanity. Theology are studying the force within humanity. And they're eventually going to find out that they are studying one and the same force. You see, when we understand what B. Rand said, it is intelligent, we are intelligent, but it is the working relationship with this power that brings about the kind of results we get, because it can't do for you what it can only do through you. Gosh, I'd give just about anything for a person to get a hold of that or to understand that. That it cannot do for you what it can only do through you. Think about that. There has been a select group of people who are the real thinkers. I mean, we could name many. Edison, Emerson, Thoreau. I mean, there are so many, we could be here all day talking about them. But every one of them, although they had different ideas and different philosophies, this is the one thing they were in complete and unanimous agreement with. These individuals have always known there is a power which permeates, penetrates, and fills the inner spaces of the cosmos, and that everything you see around you is an expression of that power, and so is everything which you feel. The power operates in a very precise manner, which is generally called law. We choose to call it God. Others may speak of it as love, divine mind, divine intelligence, Jehovah, Lord, Father, first cause, as well as a whole host of other synonymous names. But it doesn't really matter what you call it, because the important thing to bear in mind, and anyone of understanding will really admit the fact, is that it is the power that doeth the work. It's not you and I. It's something we work with. But it also works with us. In other words, everything comes from one source, and that source power always flows and works to and through you. And that is you. Stated differently, the image that you have formed can only come to you on the physical plane of your life. In other words, your results. In one way, and that is by law and through faith. There are only two words you need to remember as Bob walks you through this. One is order, and the other is movement. Order and movement. And when both of those are functioning together rather than working against one another, we have success, happiness, health, and wealth, which is your birthright.
Sylvia Vanderhook with our company, she's a vice president with our company, gave me a bumper sticker here a couple of weeks ago. And it said, "It's too bad ignorance isn't painful." And you know, that's so true. You're hitting on probably one of the most important things that anyone can study, and yet very few people study it in any depth with respect to application in the various areas of their life. John was quoting Werner von Braun, the late Dr. von Braun. He said one time, now keep in mind this was a scientist. He is considered by many as the father of the space program. And he said after years of studying the spectacular mysteries of the cosmos, he was led into a firm belief in the existence of God. And he pointed out that science and religion were not antagonistic. He said, on the contrary, they are sisters. Well, one studies the forces of nature outside of us, the other studies the force within us. Now, I have seen in my own life and a number of other people's lives some spectacular things take place when a person grasps this idea. Yesterday, I pointed out that one of our great problems was that we thought we were physical beings. And of course, we're not. If we were just physical, then there would be a limit to what we could do. There's a limit to what that table can hold. You start piling weight on that table, and you're going to get to a point where the table's just going to crush under the weight. It's like the story of the camel and the straw. You put too much straw on the camel's back, and you get to a point, you just put one straw on too many, and that's the straw that breaks the camel's back. We are spiritual beings living in physical bodies. Now, you and I have an intellect, and through the proper use of the intellect, we can do wonderful things in our life. Now, remember we were talking about the mind. We have no difficulty getting an image of a person's body. We see our own every day. We see it reflecting back from the mirror. Every time we look at someone else, we see their body. Well, the problem we have is that we have no image for the mind. As this power flows into us, we can do whatever we choose with it. And of course, we can build a negative concept or we can build a positive concept. But we have the choice of what we're going to build. Now, ask yourself, if you could have anything you want and it starts in the form of an image, what would you start imaging? Because that's really the name of the game. It's name it and claim it. Now, this works both on a negative as well as a positive basis. Because as you take this image, you can accept it, you can reject it. As the images come into our mind, we can do anything we want with them. We do not have to get emotionally involved with them. Now, this part is the spiritual side of our personality. This side of us has no ability to reject an idea. It just accepts whatever comes into it and instantly and automatically moves the body into that vibration. In other words, the image begins to move into form. I want to share something with you. It was a story of a railway employee somewhere in Kansas who accidentally locked himself into a refrigerator car and then who wasn't able to escape. Perhaps you read the story also and know what I mean when I say it continued to hold my attention. Now, he said apparently this man had banged and banged on the side of the car to attract someone's attention, but apparently also no one heard him. So he finally gave up and resigned himself to his fate. Sometime during the night, as he felt his body becoming numb, he began to scribble some sentences on the wall of the car. Sentences recording some of his last sensations as he moved closer and closer to death. The first sentence said, "I'm becoming colder." The second sentence, a little bit further down, said, "Still colder. Nothing to do but wait." Then it said, "I'm slowly freezing to death. Half asleep now, I can hardly write." And then down at the bottom, this sentence which said, "These may be my last words," which in fact they were. When the railroad car was opened the following day, they found him dead. Let me tell you something that's really startling about this story. The freezing apparatus on the car had been malfunctioning. It had not been operating properly for several days. And believe it or not, the temperature hadn't gotten below 49 degrees during the entire night that he was there. In other words, this man had become the victim of his own illusion. He had presumed that his time had come and his life is over, when in fact there was no need of that presumption at all. And so, even though the temperature had never fallen below 49 degrees, this man died nevertheless and isn't here to enjoy himself today. Neves went on to point out, he said, there's a lot of us that do that with our lives, aren't there? We misread the signs of our predicaments. We presume that things are worse than they really are. And so, like that man, we too become the victim of our own illusion. We die, if you will, even though the temperature of our circumstance never even gets close to freezing. Now, you see, this man used his reasoning factor, and he used it incorrectly. He let what he thought were circumstances control his thinking. That's the image he put in, and that's exactly what he got. Do you think maybe that that's what Moses was talking about when he talked about that reasoning factor? When he said, behold, today I lay before you both a blessing and a curse. Now, I'm going to give you an example of someone that used it the other way. Many years ago, I made a sales call in Chicago when I first started to do seminars in the United States on a gentleman named Mel Haycraft. Mel Haycraft was the vice president of sales to the Prudential Insurance Company in their Mid-America region. Now, I did not know it at the time, but the Prudential Insurance Company was the #1 company in the world, and the Mid-America region was the #1 region in the Prudential Insurance Company out of 10 different regions. So needless to say, I was talking to a heavyweight when it comes to business. I was only in his office a few minutes, and Mel said, well, Bob, what is it? And I said, Mel, I've got a seminar that'll just get your sales flying. And I'll never forget the smile that had come on his face. And he looked at me, and he pushed his chair back from the desk, and he opened a drawer, and he took a file folder out, and he spun these brochures across the desk. Did you see all those brochures? I said, yeah. He said, all those people said the same thing. I said, is that right? I said, well, we're different. He looked at me and smiled, and he said, how are you different? And I said, we get results. He said, they all said the same thing. Now, I knew that I wasn't making any headway. If you're in sales, you know when you get to a point like that, you either have to dance or hit the exit. And I wasn't about to leave. I had a hard time getting in to see this man. I said, I'll tell you what I'll do. You give me 100 of your best people. Don't give me the worst, give me the best. I said, anyone can do something with the worst. Just give me the best. And I said, we will do a seminar. Won't cost you a dime. We'll give you the material, give you the seminar, and I said, let them be the judge of whether this will help them in their sales. He said, you got a deal. So we did that seminar. We passed the test. I found myself in front of 450 of their district insurance agents at the Hillside Holiday Inn in Chicago. When I was talking to them for a very short period of time, I suggested that anyone in that room could go out and write $5 million worth of business. Now, when I mentioned that, you could just feel, wham, the minds go closed. I'd lost the entire group. Now, do you see, what we were doing and what was different, we were introducing to the psyche of their salespeople, to their sales presentation, to their belief system. They had never had that mixed in with their training before. This chap come up to me at the first break. He says, Proctor, he said, did you ever sell insurance? And I said, no, I never had. He said, I didn't think so. I said, why are you saying that? He said, you don't know what you're talking about. Oh, I said, now hold on a second. I didn't say I didn't know what I was talking about. I just said I've never sold insurance. I said, I don't know any more about insurance than the doorman or the salad chef in here. I said, I'm operating on the premise you already know how to write $5 million worth of business. He looked at me and said, well, wait just a minute. He said, you know this company is 100 years old? And I said, yeah, I'd heard that. He said, you know there's 20,000 agents in this company? And I said, yeah, I'd heard that. Well, he said, did you hear that we've never had one write $5 million worth of business? Well, I said, then you can be the first. Yeah. Now, this was around the end of August. He said, you said this year. I said, that's right. He said, the year's over half gone. Well, I said, then it won't take you as long to do it. Now, I said, Don, if you can see yourself as a $5 million producer, and you get emotionally involved with that idea, you turn it over, that part of you that's unseen, it's non-physical, but it's in every part of your being, I guarantee you, you'll act differently, and what you attract to you will be quite different. And I said, you'll do it. The second week in December, Don Slovan had paid for $5,200,000 worth of business. He closed the year with a little better than $6 million worth of business. And the strange part about this is, when he crossed that imaginary line, there was a whole string of people following. See, every person, everywhere in history, that got the image of what they wanted, they burned that image into their mind. They refused to accept circumstances. Every one of them have accomplished what they've imaged. For years, people had tried to run a mile in 4 minutes. I mean, thousands of years. Do you know the early Egyptians used to turn a lion loose and let it chase a person, hoping they'd run a mile in 4 minutes? But they couldn't do it. The experts said it couldn't be done. They said our cardiovascular system wasn't proper for it. They said our muscles weren't right. The bone structure wasn't right. But in the spring of 1954, a young guy named Roger Bannister quit believing in the experts, started to believe in Roger Bannister, and he ran a mile in under 4 minutes. Within a month, other people were running a 4-minute mile. Now, why am I mentioning these things? Well, I mention them because you can all tell a story like this about yourself. And you talk about getting emotionally involved. What did we say feeling was? We said feeling is conscious awareness of vibration. What did we say caused vibration? We said getting emotionally involved in the idea put the body into the vibration that it had to be in, and when you become consciously aware of that, you called it a feeling. What did Napoleon Hill say? He says there's a difference between wishing for something and believing you can receive it. And he said the key is you've got to believe it. William James says believe, and your belief will create the fact. Well, you know, that's where it all starts. It works both ways. It has no ability to change the idea. Whatever you ask for, that's exactly what you get. Now, as you take the idea that you build, and you've got the ability to sit down and design any idea you want. You see, if you are going to decorate your room, you'd get an idea here in your mind of how you'd like that room decorated. And then you'd go and get the things that you needed, and you'd put them in place until you had built on the physical plane of life a replica of the picture you've got in here. We have a gentleman here with us today that wrote the music and the lyrics for The Ghost and Mrs. Muir. God is the musical director over at Leopoldson Theater. When you heard, God, where does the music start? You start hearing it in your head, don't you? Yeah. That's right. You actually hear the music in your head. You see, Scott takes this power and he turns it into music in his head. He literally hears it. And as he hears it, he sees it written on paper. Am I right or wrong? Then you take a pen or a paper and you write it. Then when he's got the music, he not only writes the music, he put words with the music. And we call those lyrics. And he takes and he writes the lyrics, and he knows those words. What are words? Words are nothing but ideas dressed up for our physical benefit. And you put words, and that puts more meaning then to the sound that you've heard. See, some people will say, well, he's creative, but I'm not. That's not true. Everyone's creative. We're all an expression of the same power. We've all been given the same tools. This is where it starts. Now, you're working with a universal power. This power just isn't in you. It's in everyone. It's in everything. It's a universal power that you're impressing that idea on. Do you know when you throw a pebble into the lake, the entire shoreline has been changed? If you throw a pebble into the Atlantic Ocean, the entire shoreline has been altered. You'll say, oh, not the Atlantic. Yeah, even the Atlantic Ocean. Do you know where our problem is? We cannot see with these physical things the change in the shoreline. But understanding lets us see the change in the shoreline. Van Gogh was asked how he did such beautiful work. I dream my painting, and then I paint my dream. Do you know you'll never buy an original painting? Why? The original's on the mind of the artist. But we're all working with the same power. Do you think it's an accident when one person, one in sales, goes into their office and in their pigeonhole there are no messages, and another one goes in and there's 14 people wanting to buy something from them? Do you think it's an accident when there are two businesses side by side, one wins, one loses? You see, most people will let their present physical results control their way of thinking. They're emotionally involved in it. They think it's an accident that the same results keep reoccurring. That's no accident. If you've got a financial problem, if you've got a cash flow problem, if you've got a marital problem, that's what most people concentrate on. If a doctor takes a photograph of your body and then tells you you're sick and shows you you're sick, what's the person concentrate on? Sickness. What's the photograph prove? The photograph proves that the person has been concentrating on something wrong to move their body into that vibration. What should they do? They should ask for help. Where does it come from? There's only one source, and they see perfect health. Or they see prosperity. But the cynics don't believe this. And it's a strange thing, the cynics don't get results either. Quit letting your present results control your thinking. This power that I call God is in every one of us. And it's no more present in one person than it is in the other. Every one of us are an expression of the same power. And when we really grasp this universal concept, we're going to realize that we are all essentially the same with the same powers. It's learning how to use this. I remembered how that went, Dan. It says, because the time will most assuredly come, and the best and wisest know not how soon, when death, the leveler of all human greatness, will reduce us all to the same level. It's like burning the paper, isn't it? It's like boiling the water. See, death, as we know it, is moving out of this thing. Life, as we know it, is in this thing. But if nothing's created or destroyed, and if all science and all theology tell us the same thing, then that only postulates one theory, the theory of life. See, everything you have is going to belong to someone else at the time of your death, but what you are is yours forever. You are a perfect instrument for spirit to express itself through. Start to see yourself. Now, you've got to have an image to work with. See yourself as a perfectly endowed spiritual instrument without limitation. When you do, you're going to find it easy, in fact natural, to expect the good you desire. You will also understand that doubt simply obstructs the unfoldment of the prosperity in your life. Now, doubt does not shut down the workings of the power. The power's always working. Think of the man in the refrigerator car. It's always working. It never stops. There isn't some emotional or capricious God saying, oh, wait a minute, you're choosing the wrong thought. You ask and you'll receive. You ask for the wrong thing, you're going to get it. It'll be delivered right on schedule. You can make buck on it. The doubt you hold becomes the picture, which will turn into your physical results. You see, when you build the picture, you control from inside. You do not control from outside, regardless of the circumstance of the present results. What did James Allen say? Your circumstances may be uncongenial, but they will not long remain so if you perceive the ideal and strive to reach it. Do you know what an ideal is? An ideal is an idea that you fall in love with. And you know what love is? Love is resonance. It's harmony. It's in tune. It's operating on the same frequency. Well, when you get the higher side of your personality operating with the lower side of your personality, you're going to see miraculous changes take place on the physical side of your personality. But until you get these two in tune, you're going to have a problem. Because when they're not in tune, there's what we call conflict. And if there's conflict in the mind, I guarantee it'll express itself in the body. What do you think dis-ease is? It's the opposite of at ease. One of the best definitions of faith I've ever heard came from a chap in Chicago, Clarence Smithson. Clarence Smithson. He said, faith is the ability to see the invisible. What did we say about Scott's music? No one on planet Earth had ever heard that music that he heard in his head until he put it on paper and then sent it out so that the rest of the world could enjoy what he was enjoying. It's the ability to see the invisible, to believe in the incredible. What is incredible is that there's a power in every cell of your being that operates in a totally deductive manner. It will take whatever image you impress it upon it, and it'll move you into the vibration you have to be in, to act the way you have to act, to attract the thing you have to attract for the manifestation of the image that you chose to build. You can say, using a slightly different vocabulary, I'd make the observation, if you can show me a person who achieves great things, I can show you a person who has great faith in themselves and their ability to achieve what they imagine. We say comparatively few people today realize just how much faith in oneself, your higher self, not this false concept that we've been running around with, can't do this, can't do that. Your higher self, that side of you that's universal, that's the same side of us all. That part of you that's spiritually perfect has to do with your achievement. The majority of people never seem to conceive of faith as being a genuine creative force. Yet the truth is that not only is faith a bona fide power, it is the greatest one you will ever encounter. Ever encounter. In fact, I'd go so far as to say that whatever you accomplish in your lifetime will be in direct proportion to the intensity and persistence of your faith. Intensity, what do we mean by that? Well, remember we said one of the intellectual factors was the will. The will gives us the ability to concentrate on an idea. And when we concentrate on the idea, we're just taking that power and turning it right over. We're giving more energy to the idea. What did Emerson say? The only thing that can grow is the thing you give energy to. It's been told to us 10,000 ways. I think what we want to do is wake up. Well, do you know, as you write out this description of you, you're literally building brain cells. You're building new brain cells. Those new brain cells hold an image of the new you. Now, this is how the change is made. You use this and you let yourself totally relax. Don't try and relax. Let yourself relax. Trying is forcing, and you must let on the mind. You let yourself get emotionally involved in this image. And you know that every time you do, in a very relaxed state, wham, you just trigger those brain cells. You just think of the new you, and that picture comes up. And you know every time you do that, you're giving more and more energy to those brain cells. They become stronger and stronger. And in a relatively short period of time, those ideas will be fixed in your mind, and that's the way you'll live. You can say, I've acted like this person. I became that person. I want you to think, if I built that picture, it's like Scott heard the music, then he painted it on paper. Well, you saw the person, and then you get emotionally involved, you rewrite it. And you're going to find you'll crystallize it, and you'll make it better, and you'll make it better, and you'll make it better. Well, every time you do that, you're moving yourself into that vibration. You're going to get to the point where you'll start to expect the good that you desire. You write a lie on a card and you read it often enough, you're going to believe it. And you're going to find your belief, as William James said, will literally create the fact.